What is up, everybody? I'm No Lux Given here with your afternoon snap, and today we're going to be taking a look at Cerebro 2. It just worked well with the missions that I had today. It's not something that I generally play too often because it's not super consistent, which is kind of crazy considering everything in the deck has 2 power, other than Blue Marvel, which pumps everything up, and Cerebro and Mystique, which also do the same. But the reason that it's inconsistent is because there's so much randomness in Marvel Snap, which means that when you are playing Cerebro, you have to realize when you should pivot off of your typical everything has 2 power plan. First things, we're going to grab a Colleen Wing from the hub, which isn't that strong with only 4 power, though it would be our strongest character if we play that out onto the board. And then we also have the Raft as location number 3. There's a few different ways to play this here. We could just storm the Raft, though I feel like we're set up well for it because our deck has so many cheap cards, and then also we have Nightcrawler. So that way we can fill the Raft and then potentially move out of there later on. So I decided to try to battle for the Raft here. And then we see that my opponent has a Titania, which is a little bit concerning as well. Just while we're playing a Cerebro deck, they could potentially give us that Titania, which would then totally disrupt everything else we're trying to do with Cerebro. But we draw Mr. Sinister off the top of the deck. So we'll be able to fill the Raft with Mr. Sinister, and then we won't get the Titania from my opponent, and I will be able to move over the Nightcrawler later on in the game. We could also move over the Nightcrawler now, so that way we accept the Titania, but then we'll be getting the buff onto the Titania, and it just gets a little bit messy, but that's what happens when you are playing a Cerebro deck. We can see my opponent plays a turn 4 Atuma into Hala, and then we are going to grab Leader from the Raft. Not a card that sees too much play anymore, but for free, I'll take it, and maybe we can figure out something nice to do with that later on. So on turn 5, I think probably just want to play Blue Marvel. That's generally what you're doing with the deck, and I think that's what I'll do here. Interestingly, Colleen Wing will now discard Leader if we decide to play the Colleen Wing at any point, and we're going to see that my opponent actually snaps. Now, Leader is interesting because we do have some additional information on where my opponent might choose to play their cards. I am somewhat concerned about like a Professor X or something, because that's something that I have often used with Atuma recently, but that's basically just going to brick Leader, and I just have to hope that my opponent doesn't have it. And then later on, I'm thinking I could potentially play Leader into Hala to copy one of my opponent's cards in the Raft, since they're very unlikely to play more cards into Hala because those will blow up Atuma. My opponent actually doesn't play anything there on turn 5, so potentially setting up for a big She-Hulk play or something like that. It is going to mean that Hazmat isn't super useful here, though we do have Hazmat plus Luke Cage, so maybe we will run that out. I think I probably want to play Mystique to copy my Blue Marvel, and then I probably want to play Iceman, and then either Hazmat or Luke Cage, or just Colleen Wing at this point, because I think we're going to play Leader. We're going to try to copy whatever my opponent plays into the Raft, and then we are just going to try to dump the rest of our cards into the hub and hope that that's enough with the double Blue Marvel buff. And I'm really glad that I did this, because our Leader is actually going to reveal that my opponent played a Enchantress this turn to turn off my Cerebro. So I am super glad that I pivoted off of Cerebro. I knew we'd be able to get the win in Hala, as my opponent was unlikely to play any cards there. And then with the double Blue Marvel buff going into the hub, we're going to be able to win that location and defeat my opponent's She-Hulk. We also get M'Baku, who'll stop by at the very end there to say hello, but we didn't even need him. We had enough power to win all 3 locations regardless. That's going to be it for me today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. I'm No Lux Given. Peace.